Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode very special number 444 of the No Sugarcoating Podcast. Once I share this week's topic, I'm actually going to share with you what 444 means. It is a very powerful number. It is an angel number. So we're going to get into that right away because I've had this pop up so many times lately and in the past, especially when I'm starting to feel a little bit of doubt or worry or stress. And then this number just pops up and then a bunch of amazing things happen. And then I'm like, oh, I never had anything to worry about. So we're going to dive into just the meaning of that. And maybe it'll give you like some light or some hope or like light you up today. So this week, I really want to talk about the loneliness emotional eating trigger because it's a very common trigger that so many of my clients go through and that I went through as well. And it was one of the last ones that I had to clean up. So we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to also talk about tending to our wounded inner child because that is a big part of the loneliness trigger. And then we want to soothe with food. And then we're going to talk about, filling the void. And that's how we end sabotage with food and other things as well. So we're going to dive into all of that today. I think you're really going to enjoy that, so if you are a binge eater or an emotional eater, do you have the loneliness trigger? Or maybe you did and didn't realize it. And now you have that awareness and that's going to help you on your journey. So before we do that, a couple quick announcements. The show notes for today's episode will be found at amberapprove.ca/podcast/444. And below, if you're watching on YouTube, in the comment section, description section. A friendly reminder, if you're not subscribed to the Body Freedom newsletter, please do so. You can do so in the show notes or go to amberapprove.ca and just scroll down a bit and you can leave your details to subscribe. I drop a very fun newsletter on Wednesdays. And I also dropped the podcast announcement and some journal prompts from the podcast. That is a new thing. Remember that I'm doing journal prompts every week. Hopefully those will help you out. But that's where you can get all those details. Is it drops in the newsletter too on Wednesdays. I drop either a video or some kind of tip or recommendation. And I've also been talking about the private coaching sale that's going on for the 4, 6, and 12-month programs. The other reason I want you to subscribe to the newsletters is because, like I said, there is some stuff going on with censorship and podcasts coming up here in Canada in November. And I just want to make sure that if you are loving the podcast and if for some reason iTunes or Spotify, all of a sudden we're not available for you to listen to the podcast, that you can go to amberapprove.ca/podcast and listen or get all the updates in the newsletter. There's many other platforms I'm hoping that don't get censored, but I'll talk more about that as I get more information. Of course, the second friendly reminder is if you are struggling with emotional eating, if you are dealing with the loneliness trigger, or perhaps you're feeling stressed about the upcoming holiday season that is coming in and you're wanting to feel supported and confident with your food choices through the holidays, you're wanting to feel confident with mindful spending instead of overdoing it because you're spending to chase a dopamine high, right? What if you got to set yourself up for success through the new year and ditch diets and resolutions and actually made lifestyle changes, right? That you uphold for life. What if you actually maintained your weight through Christmas and New Year's this year and American Thanksgiving, right? This is all part of what we get to explore on a journey together. And we can do hormone testing. We can support your gut. We can work on overcoming fully the binge eating, the emotional eating, the binging and purging. And like I've been talking about, I'm offering a very beautiful savings on 12, 6, and 4-month coaching programs. Okay, this is the season of body gratitude, and I would love, 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 love to support you on your journey. I have some incredible women that I've just started working with, and the gratitude that they're expressing is, oh my goodness, I feel like I have a beacon of light in my life now, someone that's going to guide me and help me and reassure me and help pick me up when I fall, and that everything's actually going to be okay. And they say, I feel like for the first time ever, I feel like I'm actually going to overcome this self-sabotage, overcome my symptoms, really go into the new year without all of the need to diet and weight loss, and that they just feel relieved. And so you get to have that too. So if you want to take advantage of the coaching savings, you can either go to amberapprove.ca and book a 30-minute body freedom consultation. And we can talk about you, what you're seeking support with, and then talk about the programs and what may feel like the best fit. Or you can email me info@amberapprove.ca with the subject line coaching savings, and we can talk about all the details and see what feels best for you and get you on the journey to food and body freedom. And last but not least, let's talk about this meaning of 444. So if you see like triple numbers like 111, 333, 444, 999, or you see 123, 1234, or you see like 1144, right? There are significant meanings behind these, and they're angel numbers. And if you've been seeing a series of repeating numbers everywhere, You're not going crazy. It is not as a coincidence. It is a sign from your angels, guides, and the universe, God, whatever you believe in. They're trying to get your attention, and these are clues and messages. These repeating numbers show up as the time on a license plate or a road sign or on your clock or a phone number or on a receipt. Okay. You're going to see them in all kinds of different places. And this is how the universe, God, source, your guides and angels communicate to you and bring messages to you. So the meaning behind 444, okay. As the saying go, maybe you feel like you have been going up SHIT creek without a paddle, huh? Don't you dare think of giving up now. Angel number 444 comes to you as a sign that your prayers have been heard and the universe encourages you to stay focused to finish the job. You're so close to achieving your dreams. Just remember that all your hard work is about to pay off, and the universe recognizes your diligence and determination as admirable. They're sending all the support you need to succeed. If one of your goals is attaining stability, Angel 444 fully supports that to help you first by building a solid foundation. Your goals are finally within reach as you continue to build this solid foundation for sustained, lifelong success. Okay. Also, seeing 444 is a sign that you've been asking for help and you have surrendered to receiving assistance. And you may even recognize the work of the universe and the angels through serendipitous moments. Okay. So feel a lot of gratitude. There's so much for us to be grateful for, and I think that this is just powerful. And this is just another example of signs, invisible signs that come through these messages. So before I dive into today's episode, I wanted to share a bit of a success story from a client, a beautiful client that I've had the pleasure to work with. And, we've been really, really, really working on binge eating, as I do with most of my clients. And when we had her last session, I was just like, how do you feel? Like, what's changed for you? What have been the benefits of doing this? And she said the following: I feel less of a void. I feel like I'm finally gaining traction with my sugar addiction. It feels like magic. I've never felt this stable mentally. I'm so amazed I could feel free from sugar or be capable of overcoming the self-sabotage with food. I feel like what I'm gaining from healing my relationship with food is freedom. Freedom, freedom, freedom. I'm learning to love myself and my body and use the powerful tools that you've given me to cope instead of food. It feels so good to not be reliant on sugar and food. And I feel a deeper connection with myself and my soul, and it makes me want to cry because the way I'm feeling now, I've never felt so calm inside. And I feel like I've been lifted out of a darkness. This is a huge shift. Thank you for your kindness and nurturing support to help me grow. I'm forever grateful for the support. So this is the kind of shifts that is happening. So if that is something that you want to create and you want to reach out, the door is open. Okay, we've gone through everything. The topic for today, the newsletter, the coaching sale, the 444 meaning. I love this number. It's one of my favorites. So let's now talk about loneliness and emotional eating. So if you are an emotional eater, if you are a binge eater, does the loneliness trigger come up for you? And I'm going to share some different examples of this because you might be going, well, I don't know. So one example of the loneliness triggering emotional eating is maybe you have a partner, a spouse, and when they go away and you're alone, that loneliness kicks in and that really triggers you to want to self-sabotage because you're sad that they're gone. Or maybe it's that they go away and yes, there's loneliness, but now you're like, oh, nobody's here to see what I'm doing, and I can do this, I can hide and I can emotionally eat and my spouse isn't going to see me, right? So there's that like rebellion. I don't have to eat in the closet. I can come out of the closet and eat out in the open by the TV and no one's going to be here to witness me, right? So you won't get caught. There can be like the loneliness. Maybe you've just gone through a breakup and you're not used to being on your own, and that loneliness and the hurt that you're processing through the breakup both is fueling this desire to want to soothe, numb, distract, and shove down those emotions with food to get that quick dopamine high, that quick pleasure response, right? So it could be that kind of thing that is the loneliness trigger. I know for me, loneliness used to be a big emotional eating trigger, and I was just so sad because I had been on my own for about 6 or 7 years, maybe even a little bit more. No, it was 6 or 7 years. And I was just sad. I'm like, oh, this is sad. I'm tired of being alone. I don't want to be alone anymore. And, food is my friend. So because I'm alone tonight, I'll justify, binging and overdoing it and then feeling, like crap. Obviously the goal was not to feel like crap, but it was just that like sadness and grief and just this emptiness of being alone. But part of that is not not that you need to have someone there to fill that for you, because no one can fill that void for you. You've got to fill it yourself. And what you're going to hear me talk more about today is that there is this like friendship for us to build with ourselves and this wounded inner child for us to mend this relationship with. And as we do that and we fill the void, what we realize is we're actually not alone. We have ourselves, we have me, myself, and I. And when we heal that relationship, we will not have it trigger sadness or despair or like just this really low feeling that then triggers us to want to self-sabotage with food. And that's a really powerful place to get to. And then when you get into the aligned partnership and or your relationship is amazing and you have someone else to share your life with, when you are alone, it will not trigger you to emotionally eat, because you'll see the value in having time for you. And you'll be able to do self-care and nurture yourself or take care of yourself however you see fit, make memories. And I think there's a perception shift that comes with this. So do you experience the loneliness emotional eating trigger? Or maybe for you, it's like you have to spend every minute outside of your work or your job or right away. Like maybe you have kids, and then if they're gone, that makes you feel lonely. Or if you're not social all the time and you have to spend a bit of time on your own, that triggers the loneliness emotional eating trigger. Because sometimes when we're overbooked and we're so busy with social and, giving our time to everyone else, it can feel very uncomfortable and foreign to be with ourselves, because when we're with ourselves, we might have to face some of our stuff, feel some of our stuff that's stuck inside. And some people fear the discomfort of feeling their emotions and actually being with them, when then it's actually a natural thing to do. So instead of actually feeling or looking at it or processing through it, we will avoid and go into avoidance mode by staying overbooked, overscheduled, overcommitted, and in a, maybe more than what's healthy social circumstance. And some people are more social than others. And it's important to have a balance, because what can end up happening is if we are staying too overbooked, we don't have enough downtime for ourselves, that can really mess with our hormones, our blood sugar, fuel more cravings, more emotional eating, weight gain, fatigue, exhaustion, brain fog, and all kinds of other things as well. So we just want to be mindful of that. So that's the first journal prompt actually is, am I dealing with the loneliness emotional eating trigger? And like, why? What about being alone triggers you to want to self-sabotage? What do you not like about it? Do you get uncomfortable? Does it make you sad? What is that about? I think that's really important to build that awareness. So, I guess I could describe it as some of the first signs that you feel called to go to food is you're going to feel probably some kind of sadness. Maybe you feel just a little heavier in your body. You feel a little more negative. You go, oh, why do I have to be alone? I don't want to be alone anymore. I want to be with somebody. All these people have somebody and I don't. Like, it could be all that kind of chatter. But something to just really contemplate. Like, how does it feel in your body when you're alone? What triggers the urge to want to go to food? Is it because your spouse is left and you're like, yeah, now I can do it and hide it and no one's going to see, right? I think that is the first step of this awareness, is really understanding that. And then it's exploring, well, what kinds of foods are you picking? What kinds of foods? Because often we will go to food in the case of the loneliness trigger because we're trying to comfort ourselves and soothe ourselves. So is it you're finding yourself going to like ice creams and cheeses, creamy foods, baked goods, pastas, breads, right? Those would be all the comfort foods. Chocolate, as it melts, it's thick and creamy, right? So all these comforty kind of foods. Does that feel resonant? Are you craving sweet? Are you craving salty? Are you craving fast food? But what kinds of foods do you crave? And that's the second journal prompt. Because I think our cravings can tell us a lot. And if you want to learn more about your cravings, you can go and check out the Conquer Your Cravings 3-part masterclass replay. It is available on amberapproved.ca if you click on online programs and then masterclasses. It's great, and you'll learn a lot about your cravings, emotional meanings, physical, energetic meanings. What kind of foods am I craving? Okay. So then let's talk a little bit about how this is connected to our wounded inner child. So we all have an inner child. It could have been you last week, you 30 years ago, you when you were 5. The inner child really represents you at any age. And essentially what has happened is you've gone through some kind of an experience where you've directly been hurt physically, emotionally, something like that, and or you were observing a circumstance and then you made up a story that was false and you took that on as your identity. So I'm going to share some examples. So in my case, when I was 5, as many of you know, my first day on the bus, I get on the bus and the older boys call me ugly and fat, and then the whole bus is making fun of me. That wounded my inner child. And then I took on the identity that I was ugly and fat. And I took that identity on for the next 20 years of my life. And I was very intimidated by men. And I didn't want to have any friendships with boys or men because I was afraid I was going to get hurt again. Okay. So that wounded my inner child and made me feel like I can't trust men. Boys are mean. I'm not good enough. I'm these things. Okay. But then in a circumstance where it may not be direct, it may be a circumstance like maybe you have a sibling or you have multiple siblings or you have a parent that was unwell. And so you noticed a lot of the attention being given to your sibling or your parent. And then you felt like you didn't get a lot of attention, you didn't get a lot of time, and that you just had to like bend and be flexible to be supportive of whatever the sibling or the parent needed. And therefore you created this story, something like, I'm ignored, I'm not good enough, I'm not as important. And because I'm not as important, I have to try harder, I have to prove, I have to be perfect. Right. So, we all go through these experiences and circumstances, and it doesn't necessarily make it right or make it, feel good that in the moment you didn't get as much attention, but we will create stories and then we will attach to those stories and we will identify with those stories. And they come with us our whole lives until we start to do this deeper work, this healing, this inner child healing, working on our triggers, our self-worth. And so then what you do is you create these stories and you take them along with you for your life. And then you create other scenarios. You gather quote unquote evidence that like, yeah, no matter where I go or what I do, like it's never good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not important. I don't look good enough, whatever the story is. And so then what ends up happening is your wounded inner child will get triggered. So if you're in a circumstance, now maybe you're like 40 and you're in the circumstance where you were ignored or you felt ignored as a child and you didn't feel as important enough. And then maybe you just like did this incredible presentation at work, or you made the most amazing meal for your family. But because you didn't get a big validation from your boss, your colleague, your coworker, your spouse, your kids, whatever, that triggers this wounded inner child that's like, oh, they didn't acknowledge you. See, you're still not good enough. So what's happening is the wounding from the past is triggering you to get upset now, and it's actually triggering your ego. So our wounded inner child is actually a big part of what will trigger our ego and for us to give our power away and keep creating stories and making things up and being hard on ourselves. Okay. Does that all make sense? And so when we let the wounded inner child call the shots, we're usually really out of our power. We're usually very reactive, very emotionally sensitive. We can go into the victimhood mode more easily. And all of that triggers us to be really hard on ourselves, and maybe others, project on ourselves a lot, and others be very critical of ourselves. And then we can get into more people pleasing, more proving, trying to be perfect to show people that I'll show them that I'm good enough. I'm going to prove to everyone that I've made it, right? If I just lose the weight and look good, then I'll get the attention, I'll get the revenge body, and then I won't have any issues like with people telling me I'm ugly or fat again, like whatever that stuff is, right? The ego comes in and the ego wants to get revenge. The ego wants to prove, but that is all coming from lack and unworthiness and not feeling good enough. We have to prove, if we have to be perfect, we have to show everybody, there's something lacking within us that we don't fully feel whole and complete with. And it's usually the wounded inner child, part of that void, that lack of self-love. And when we have that, we will often be chasing our self-worth outside of ourselves, chasing validation from others, trying to do everything for everyone else to feel good enough because then they'll validate us. But if you don't get validation, then you stop feeling worthy. And that's where, like you always hear me saying, it's so important that we be willing to go inward and do our inner, deeper work to fill the void and feel good enough and to tend to our wounded inner child, to start talking to our wounded inner child, seeing what the insecurities are that your wounded inner child may have. Like for me, for years, she was so upset about this experience on the bus. And I had to talk to her a lot about it and help her get over it and help her grieve it and help her let it go and help her feel safe. And now thinking about that experience, I'm so neutral to it. It doesn't bother me at all, but it took lots of, time and self-care practices and visualizations and meditations and talking to her and, telling her, I'm so sorry you had to go through this and everything happens for a reason. And there's things for you to learn from this. And, it doesn't make it right, but it's an experience you literally designed your life around going through, because our souls create our soul contract and then we go through experiences, right? So it was a very liberating experience to work on healing that wound that I had. And I've done a lot of healing with all kinds of different stuff and continue to. It is a lifelong experience, but I think we can gain a lot of relief from these wounds. And I do a lot of inner child work with my clients, and we do visualizations and we connect with inner childs and the, follow-up sessions. And it's interesting, actually, I had a session with a client last week and we are connecting with her inner child for the first time. And she felt so much better afterwards. She's like, I don't know what we did in that inner child session that helped, but I feel so much relief from these people in my family. And I'm not worried about them judging me anymore. And I feel free. But this is what happens when we acknowledge these wounded parts of us. Because if you think about it, with the wounded inner child, we go through these experiences and then we store them in the body. And we all have an inner child living within us, and we are not taught how to tend to or connect with that inner child. And then our inner child's getting really upset because there's this built up emotion from how many years or decades, and your inner child feels ignored. And then your inner child gets really upset, and then that keeps triggering your ego. And if we don't tend to that, the inner child will keep being triggered and trigger you emotionally, and then you'll give your power away to your ego. So your wounded inner child is trying to get your attention so that you can do some healing and mend this relationship. And as you do, you feel the void, you feel more connected. The calmer your inner child, the calmer you're going to be, the calmer your ego is going to be. Hopefully that all makes sense, but it's all very connected. So if you have a circumstance, maybe you want to think about a circumstance right now that you can vividly remember creating a story or being, hurt or impacted in a negative way. Someone said something to you, you got bullied, but just a moment that really impacted your life in the way that you showed up moving forward. Maybe, someone poked your stomach and made a comment about your stomach being, having a belly, or that you needed to go on a diet as a child, whatever it was. Maybe something happened 2 weeks ago that had a significant impact. And to tie this back into the loneliness with emotional eating, I often find when we have this wounded inner child that hasn't been tended to or supported, or that we haven't given attention to, that when we have an emotional eating or binge eating behavior, that part of what the loneliness trigger represents with emotional eating or binge eating is this wounded inner child that has been ignored innocently. It's not your fault. We're not taught how to tend to this part of us, but we've been ignored, we've been hurt, we've been shoved down. And then part of the loneliness trigger is this part of you trying to get your attention and go, hey, we have time to ourselves. Can you come and connect with me? Can we talk? Can you help me heal so that we can have this friendship together? Can we connect together, please? It's very powerful. And I find as we clear these wounds and we feel more connected and confident with ourselves, even if we're alone, we don't feel alone anymore, because I just have myself. I've got me, I've got my inner child, I've got my past memories, I've got my future self, I've got my soul, and I can connect with these aspects of myself. We've got guides and angels. We're truly never alone. And that some time on our own is important and healthy for self-care, for relaxation, for reflection, for independence, for whatever it is. But having some of that is very healthy. So where do you feel resistance around having some time to yourself? That's the third journal prompt. So where do you feel resistance or have resistance around spending time by yourself? I'm just writing this down as we go because I don't want to forget for the email. Things for you to explore. really take some time. And I mean, ideally to build awareness with your emotions and overcome self-sabotage, like there is some alone time needed. And this is, you get to shift your perception and be sad instead of being sad about having time for yourself, to shifting your perception to going, wow, I have this time for me to heal this, to explore this, to look at it. That is a gift. So let's talk about filling the void to end sabotage with food. So with the loneliness trigger, any trigger for that matter, the first step is being aware of it. That's how we start to course correct, continuing to use food as a coping mechanism and instead learn how to start to take our power back from food so that we can heal and overcome and create this freedom, like I was talking about in the success story earlier with my client, right? Freedom is like the key word. You feel so free emotionally, in your body, from your symptoms. You don't have to think about food all the time, but you get to enjoy it. It's so freeing. So, like I'm always talking about, nothing outside of us can fill the void. No amount of validation from someone, no amount of someone telling you you're good enough or you look good enough, or right, no amount of money in your bank account will make you feel good enough. No amount of success, no amount of friends or cars or Chanel purses or the number on the scale. None of that is going to fill your internal void and make you feel good enough because it's all external. The only thing that can make you feel good enough is you being willing to go inward and start filling the void. Start connecting with yourself, talking to your inner child, reflecting on, why are you in a perfectionist mentality? Why does loneliness trigger you to want to emotionally eat? Why are you using food as a comfort safety blanket? Why do you not like your body? What brought up your body insecurities? Why are you a people pleaser? This is really important information for you to explore, because the more you can answer the questions, and if you can't and you're not sure and you want support in helping you build this awareness, this is what I do with my clients all the time. We're building awareness. We're growing understanding. And that is really important and really powerful, because as we do that and you understand where your behaviors, thoughts, and beliefs came from, you can shift them. You can let go of those which no longer serve you and start building a new identity with your body, with food, with yourself. And that all helps you fill the void, catching the trigger and going and doing something that comforts you without food instead and clearing that trigger out. That fills the void. So how are you going to comfort yourself? Well, it just snowed here, 20 centimeters. So to me, what feels very comforting is making a beautiful cup of tea or a lovely Organic Traditions mint hot chocolate, sitting by the fire with a blankie and just enjoying the cozy ambiance. Or maybe it's a bath with your favorite, most luxurious essential oils, or your favorite bath bomb, or your favorite bath salt. You've got Zen music playing in the background. Maybe for you, it's a walk outside. Maybe it's putting on your big cozy slippers. Maybe it's a lovely conversation on the phone with somebody, or coloring, or knitting, or crocheting, or drawing, or journaling. There's so many things that each of us associate with comfort outside of food, but a lot of us associate food with comfort because we grew up with grandma making all these comfort foods, and it's conditioned into us from the media and commercials, and we love the dopamine high and the quick fix. We don't want to put in the effort, or we're too exhausted to actually think about it. So it's just easier to go and eat, even though it's actually harder in the long run because there's a lot of suffering. So start to explore, how do I want to comfort myself without food? How do I want to see this as an opportunity to start to befriend myself and mend this relationship with myself? Because that's what this is really actually all about. So I want you to start thinking about that. Maybe for you, it's starting to work on negative self-talk. And when you hear it come up, you start to shift it to positive, even if you don't believe it right away. Maybe for you, you want to get into more of a meditation practice because it boosts your mood, because it produces more dopamine and serotonin, and that boosts our mood. And that lowers your desire to want to self-sabotage. Maybe when your spouse goes out of town, you plan the most beautiful, spa self-care weekend at home, and you do a bath one night, and then you meditate and you stretch and you do your favorite yoga and you journal and you make the most nourishing food and you eat mindfully and you put candles on the table and it's beautiful. You spoil yourself. But there's so many ways you can start to fill the void and end sabotage with food. Maybe it's setting a boundary. Maybe it's saying no. Maybe it's only booking one weekend plan instead of 5. But filling the void helps you feel worthy and good enough, helps you feel emotionally and physically satiated, and then you don't want to soothe with food. And the more confident and connected you feel to your body, the safer you feel feeling through and processing through your emotions. And the safer you feel feeling and processing through your emotions, well, then you don't need to use food to cope or shove them down. And then when you are by yourself, you're like, I've got me, myself, and I've got my own back. And I can also connect with my inner child, whether it's to just talk to her and like laugh and play, or to actually like work through a wound and let it go and heal more. So we actually see all these opportunities. Now you can choose to just check out and mindlessly scroll on your phone. But one thing that I've been realizing lately is time is of the essence. Time is very valuable. And sometimes I can get into the habit in the evening after I wrap up my day, I'll like do a little gratitude, put my phone away, but then I'll like, oh, maybe I should go and like see what's going on and like check these people's stories and all this stuff. And then I'm like, nope, time to reset the boundary with the phone. Because what I'd rather do while I'm waiting for hubby to get home, or he's like, finishing up his day, is I would love to sit and journal or do a gratitude or read a couple of pages out of an amazing book that's just helping me, or just sit with the fire on in the dark and like be present, really connect, be aware, but at the same time, like allow, relax, and let go. All of this fills the void. It helps us feel more safe and secure within ourselves. And the more safe, secure, and grounded we feel within ourselves, the more unshakable we become. And I think that's a very important, powerful thing to know, especially as the world happens. I'll share an episode sometime coming up, but it's going to get loud in the world. It's loud already. It's going to feel loud. And I think 2024 is going to be a very loud year. So the more grounded, the more we can heal and regulate our nervous systems, heal the relationship with food, and learn how to befriend ourselves, the less we're fighting with ourselves and our bodies, I think the easier it's going to be for us to process through the loudness of the world. We're going through an ascension. We're going through a massive up level. And so certain things need to break down and build back up. And that's all I'll say for that for now. I have all the faith in the world that we're going to an amazing place, but things have to break down sometimes in certain aspects. And the more we heal, the more we feel connected to ourselves, the more we feel the void, the more worthy we feel, the higher we vibrate, the higher our frequency gets, and we emit more love and gratitude, and you become a beacon and a shining light. And that helps raise the frequency collectively of the planet. And that is very powerful. The more you fill your void and love yourself, the more you just trust and have faith, and fear dissolves. It's very powerful. And then we can actually hold space for others who may be in direct crisis. It's hard for us to have capacity to do that if we are a mess as well. And we're all going to go through our ups and downs. We're all human. But the more you heal, the more you feel the void, the more you unsabotage with food and heal and connect with your inner child, the more powerful and strong you are to weather anything. And someone told me that when I was really struggling with binge eating and my mom was really starting to decline. She's like, you were going to heal this. You were going to learn to love yourself, because you're going to get to the point where your foundation is so strong and you're unbreakable and you can weather any storm, because you're going to be holding space for other people. I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but now I'm like, oh, it totally makes sense. This is what we get to create. This is what doing the work, the inner work, creates. A lot of power, love, compassion, gratitude. This is what you get to create. Shift your perception of what you being with yourself means. It's a very sacred gift to have this time for you and yourself. If you're like, I don't know, don't want to be alone, I know I'm going to just binge, I don't want any of that anymore, but I don't know where to get started, then reach out and book a 30-minute body freedom consultation or email me. We can talk about exploring potentially going on a journey together to help you build this solid foundation so you feel you can weather any storm as well. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. The show notes, which will include the journal prompts and the sign up for the newsletter and all the other details from today, will be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/444. You can also go to amberapproved.ca and take the free emotional eating quiz if you're wondering if you're struggling, as well as you can find all kinds of resources, learn more about me, what body freedom is. If you want to watch some success stories and hear from other clients, you can. And I'm sending you all so much love. Thank you for being here again with me for another episode. And as I always say, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health, your healing your relationship with food, filling your void, connecting with your inner child. So take action now. Have a beautiful day. And I'm super excited because I'm actually dropping a beautiful guest episode on Wednesday. And I'll give you a key hint. Sleep Okay, you will not want to miss it. It will drop on Wednesday. So we will chat with you then. Sending you so much love. Have a beautiful day and a great week.